I don't keep track of. There's so many people who whine. Do you think I have time to remember? You don't have time to remember all their names. She was tweeting all this vile stuff, saying that supervised government-sponsored genocide, da, 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 da. Now, I don't know if she's talking about, I'm just assuming it's the Mau Mau Rebellion and all of this stuff. Have you, I take the time to read about some of this. And it's, because it's very, I just want to know why why no one's saying anything about how the actual rebels, what happened with them. There was one of the stories that it was actually given, that the press had covered. It was near Nairobi. And there was a farmer and his wife that had been butchered by members of the Mau Mau Rebellion. It was in 1953. And there were tons, in fact, there were tons of people who died horrible deaths at the hands of these people in this rebellion. And they were fighting against what they viewed as British colonization. There were Europeans coming in and they were farming. And from what the way that it read, they weren't, it's like they weren't, they were, a lot of them also were working with people native to the area. And a lot of the people farming were also themselves native to the area. So it seems like at some point I questioned, well, how much of this is anger at Britain and Europe, and then how much of it is anger at you just want to control this and you're using that as justification to carry out atrocities. So the British responded and they had a crackdown and all this stuff. And this was after they had, tons of people that were killed. And I think that's, kind of because people say that the British government committed all of these atrocities against Kenyans and it's horrific that they did that. And not at any point does anyone discuss how this whole thing started. They said that recruitment to Mau Mau began actually with the bloodshed of entire villages. They would wipe out entire villages, and people were forced to take oaths of allegiances and all of this stuff. I mean, they ultimately, some people said it was really nothing more than, it really was actually a civil war between rival African factions, and the British were there working with the group that was doing the farming, and they were working with Britain and establishing economic ties and all of this stuff. And that's apparently, what happened. But there's a difference between colonization and imperialism. And I think that people forget, because they were like this professor who was screeching over and over again about on Twitter and all these other people. I have so many examples of this. I mean, there's New York Times, New York Magazine, The Atlantic. They were saying she was a colonizer. She was the one that actually oversaw the creation of the Commonwealth. Do people understand what the Commonwealth is? I mean, the Commonwealth is the direct opposite of everything that they were claiming was happening. They have the Commonwealth of Nations. There's a ton of nations in there. And it's not about subjugation. I mean, they actually, what is it? Free and equal that's their slogan. If you're a member state, it's free and equal. And they share economic ties, protection, all this other stuff. And that seems kind of the opposite of what people are accusing. Words have meanings, and it just seems like a lot of people pushing this Marxist CRT don't understand this. Yes, there's colonialism. Yes, there's imperialism. And yes, there's a difference between those two things. And yes, there's a difference between those two things and what the Commonwealth is and does. Half of these people that are screeching about this could not even explain to you the difference between England, Great Britain, UK, Commonwealth. They couldn't explain to you what the difference in those terms mean, but they want you to take them seriously on this stuff.